you're good to go.
Tammy, truly, I'm so thankful you're here. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
So why don't we just start off with state your name, tell us a little bit about your practice. We're here in New Jersey. Yeah, let's just start off with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I first would actually like to acknowledge the original people of this place and space, the Lenni Lenape, where this filming is taking place. I would also like to acknowledge the original peoples of the place and space the film may be viewed in. That's really important because without the original peoples and their living in symbiotic relationship, we could not be here today. And so that's really important for me to acknowledge that before I start anything. So that's my first. And then secondly, I'd love to thank you for this invitation because I'm grateful for this opportunity. It's such a needed topic to be expressed and for bringing awareness. So thank you. And I wanted to also thank Sarah Velez of Operation Hope for connecting us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So could you tell us about what is your cultural heritage and how does that, how does that influence what you do today, and tell us about your services?
Yeah, so I think I'll go back just a little bit to say that my business, right? So then if I explain my business a little bit, it will also maybe help with that and why people see kind of that integration. But I'm the founder of the Lightness of Being Mind Movement Advocacy and Vision. And my goal in the business, the mission, is really to bridge the health of people and the planet. We are interconnected beings, and we've lost that connection. And I think that's a lot about the health of people in general. So when I say bridge the gap, there's 3 aspects or 4 aspects of my business. The one that's real specific here today and what the docuseries is all about is lightness of mind. And that is really profoundly taking someone on a spiritual journey so that they can get real deep healing work. It helps break patterns, behaviors, reactiveness, you could say, so that those things that we might be dealing with because of trauma, whether it's perceived or actual, past and current, can actually, the patterns can be broken. The mind is kind of opened up. You go into these deep, what I like to say is a deep meditation, because that's what most people can understand, but it goes way, farther than that, actually. So that aspect of my business in the lightness of mind is the seeds work that I do. And so that work is done, I say, with intrinsically, it's with the person, but it can also bring in the extrinsic. So like the psilocybin and different things in that. But I never go to that point right off with anyone. I start out with the intrinsic, what's within us. Because I think what's happening now with how things are coming about, and I'm all about alternatives, I will just say that right up front, is though people are starting to already look at those things as extrinsically, I'm going to take this and I'm going to be fixed, just as the medication that Rob mentioned, right? It's this, we got to fix them with something. But first, we really have to fix what's inside here. So that's one aspect of my business. And the other aspects I feel are important to also mention because everything's interconnected, right? So the other aspect of my business is lightness of movement and advocacy. And that's where I provide agency for climate justice. And in my opinion, climate justice is encompassing of social justice and environmental justice. So it's all about the equity of and empowerment of all living beings, entities, right? So that's also plants. It's not just humans. It's how we relate to our environment. And then I have another part of my business that's the lightness of vision. And that is a project, so it's an art project that I am being mentored by a Cherokee chief. And it is really about helping people to understand their connectedness with Mother Earth, those living things. All of this is interconnected, and it really is the whole, you could say, of the business. And so what I like to say is that my services, all services, they call out to those desiring to shape the future, which will be less driven by prescriptive methods and views and repeated patterns of human-created systems, and much more through the reality of natural systems again. That's what I'd like to see, and that's what I'm trying to do.
You and I had a session, a healing session, and let's just comment a little bit about it because it's the most, experiential for me. And so, how would you define that healing session, and how is that used in helping people with, just for mental health? And I think I used the word balance, but you said harmony.
It's harmony.
Harmony.
Yeah.
So
let me explain that, because I think that's perfect with balance and harmony. So in the Native American wisdom, harmony is what we need, because things are going to be like this, and that's how they should be. When something needs to be like this for a little while, that's okay. Then when this needs to be like this a little while, harmony is when flat. Nothing's occurring. There's no movement. That's the wisdom there that I learned from my elders, which I grasp onto, because everybody says about balance. I have a work-life balance. Have this. What is that? There's no movement in life around that. It really is a harmony. Some things might be like this, then we're like this. It's okay. That's the harmony. That's the real harmony. So the session that you went through, just to differentiate, because I know I just mentioned the seed session when I was talking about the lightness of mind part of my business. And that is a very intensive session, it typically takes about 4 hours. For the session that you went through, it's typically an hour. And so what that session does is to allow vibration, right? So the drum connects our heartbeat with Mother Earth's heartbeat. The rattles this one is made of beaver and deer. I give great thanks. My drum is made from buffalo and maple tree, and it's also made of all life that helped me to make this, because it was a huge guided journey through guidance by a Native American woman who I value very much in my life, who teaches me a lot of wisdom. And so everything is connected, as I say, right? So the vibrations, so the healing we did with you was to really allow you to sense that peace, right? To sense peace, lying down, feeling comforted. You mentioned the weighted blanket being one of your favorite things, and to feel cocooned, to being wrapped up, right? And then to, use the drum and the rattles to create the vibration that's going to help you surface anything that no longer serves you, right? So it's that stuff gets alleviated. And what I'd like to say is it goes back to Mother Earth to be recycled, even though that's, recycle is not really a good term in my book anymore. But really, Mother Earth takes care of that, and she feeds us then that energy, that in the vibration, right, from the drum, that does fill us up and does help us get to a place where we have these layers of comfort come through. It can be, some people see, like even in the seed session, in the drum session, what's not different actually is that some people do go through a profound awakeness regardless of, if they're with me for an hour or they're with me for 4 hours. And that awakening comes from within. It's your healing. Some people can sit in darkness, but it's a peaceful darkness. People most often see how all of a sudden they are this small piece of everything, all things. I once did a young lady who said, I'm floating in darkness, but I'm looking behind me and I see the world. I see the world, right? Like another person said to me once when they were going through a seed session, I'm seeing color, but it's not color, it's music. You know, it's these integrated, we are part of everything, and vibration being so key in what we relay out into the world. Our thoughts are vibration, our voice is a vibration, and all of that vibration is what creates the future, right? So if we're thinking bad thoughts, it gets out there. It's a ripple effect is how I like to look at it. And that ripple effect is for us too, not just going out. The ripple effect comes back, right? Yeah.
Let's take this. It's almost like your voice is soothing me into a sense of harmony already. You know, we're all aware of the whole mental health topic has come out of the closet across the world over the last few years. How is the service you offer, and I could almost answer it, but I want you to, how can the drumming and the rattle and the services you offer, how can that help just your average person in, you know, mental health growth or mental health healing?
Yeah.
You know, how is that?
Well, I like to say that the work that I do is proactive or protective. Protective for an individual. And because our beings are made up of so many realms, but most of us, right, in this modern day, we only think about our physical realm of our body, right? It's our body, right? We have all these other realms. It is our emotional realm. It is our mental realm. It is our higher intellect. It is our spiritual realm. So we're all interconnected in that way, but we mostly focus on physical. So when you say to somebody, oh, you need to take care of that leg that's broken, right? Or that wound that's on your leg, and this is what you do, people can understand that because we're so focused on that single realm of our being. But what people have a difficult time or a challenging time in understanding is all these other layers of our actual essence of who we are, our being. And so with the work that I do, it is, I say, proactive and protective in a sense of if you keep yourself healthy spiritually, all other realms fall in to health, positiveness, positive experiences, positive feelings, all of those things integrated.
That's a great contrast to the next question. You have been exposed to people who have, I will call it spiritual crisis or spiritual emergency or an altered state, maybe an awakening that happens. How do you work with the therapeutic community to integrate your services with other professional services when someone is in a spiritual crisis or a spiritual emergency? And I'm going to also say, so that they don't have to go into a hospital.
Yeah.
You know, and that's...
So what I like to clarify is that the work that I do isn't necessarily emergent or urgent care. So it is more that proactive care. So if somebody is having a crisis, that's not where my work is going to step in and I'm going to start to rattle and drum or try to take you through this journey, right? That's not the time. But it is the time to do it proactively or after something has happened to try to get you to integrate and understand what's happened. So in my work, I actually do partner quite extensively with therapists and physicians as well, organizations as well. And to me, it's a vital part, right? That you're each doing your part, like what you have your expertise in order to help an individual holistically. So one thing that I will say though is that anybody that refers patients to me, I'll say patients if I speak as a from a physician, but honestly I don't like to use that word. I say people. Because we are all human beings and we're all people that deserve care and love and all of those good things. So I don't like to use that term client or patient. So when a therapist or physician will refer the person to me, I make sure that it's a therapist or a physician that I have connection with who knows the uniqueness of the healing that I provide. So they have to actually go through journey with me so that they know what I am providing to potentially, their patient or client. And that to me is really important. It's also to understand how the work can be integrated in what they're doing. So it's almost like a cycle, right? So it can be me referring somebody to a therapist that I know could help them maybe more integrate something that has gone or something that's awoken within them. Although I can guide them, and I do a lot of pre kind of stuff before my sessions and a lot of aftercare with people. However, if somebody has something and they just feel that they have that little bit of something hanging over or something they weren't aware of was surfaced, then I will refer them to a therapist or a physician. So it's really a cyclical thing, and how I look at those partnerships is that it's partnerships for the collective health and well-being of all of us.
Let's talk a little more about some of the words you used. The partnership for collective well-being, but you also use the term integration. Mm-hmm. And integration is often, it's a term that's used when someone goes into a hospital, psychiatric hospital, especially against their will. It's very traumatic, and so it's the term is used that now they have to integrate that whole process, the experience they had, the traumatic experience, and then, after. Have you ever worked with anyone with your tools and services who has come out of a psychiatric hospital or that kind of an experience?
Not immediately, because this work is really deep. So if somebody's just had an experience and it's all fresh, you could say, to them, typically they'll go and they'll be seen by or follow up, right, with a physician or a therapist or both. I come in a little bit after that, because if it is crisis, again, this work isn't urgent or emergent. But it will help once they get to a point. And usually the therapists and the physicians know. They know, okay, we've done this and this, and we've only gotten this far. Now maybe it's time to integrate with the deeper spiritual piece of the work. And so because of that, those two pieces, in a sense, you have to identify when is the perfect time to integrate, right? Because you don't want to do it too soon, because like I mentioned, the awakening that can happen with this can also be traumatic for people. So you don't want to heal the wound partially and then reopen the wound, right? So if I keep going back to that physical realm because that's what we all understand, but it is a little bit of time. But if somebody knows that there's disharmony within themselves, that's a perfect time for me to step in before crisis happens. So again, proactive, preventative.
So I like the promotion of proactive preventative, because that pretty much covers all of us. But I also like knowing that there is a resource, what you're talking about, to help that integration process at the right time. For me, it's 19 years since I went through my experience, and I found you, and I'm coming back.
Yes.
So at some point, we don't know what point it is, but right now this is my time to spend time with you, because I want to go that next level.
Yes, and I'm glad you said the next level, because what's really important to me and what my elders have taught me is that layers. We are truly like the onion, right? Where we have to peel these layers off. So even though, a traumatic event could have happened, and then you went through your therapy and your follow-up and all of that, there's always other layers and, that come available, right, to you, or surface. That's how I like to say it. It surfaces. And what I've always been taught about is that those layers surface in a way of time, the time that we can most understand them, the time that you're most ready to receive the medicine, this kind of medicine that I'm talking about, that I offer, for your next layer of healing. Again, integration, right? You're not ready for all of that healing to happen right when everything is fresh always. Also, you think about how people sometimes remember or don't remember, right? Disassociation, different things like that happen, and that when things surface again, they are surfacing at the right time. We try to stay away from fear, right? To stay away from the fear and to put people back in that traumatic situation, but to rather get them beyond the fear so that they can viscerally feel and understand, because these are the pieces that we're missing with our healing. Because as a Native American elder taught me, and I knew this since I was a little girl, but it was a great reminder, was that the state of the world, the health of Mother Earth, reflects the state of the health of the people. And if you look at the crises that we are in right now, our world, we're consuming her, and we're not giving back. We're not living in reciprocity. It's the same with ourselves. Yeah.
You've mentioned the elder, and that I think you've also told me before you're being mentored by an elder. Could you just speak a little bit to that in terms of your own personal journey, that you were raised white, but you have Cherokee background?
So I am being mentored by Venerable Diani Yahu, is the chief of the Green Mountain Ane Run Wi Wa, of a member of the Awada Band of the Eastern Cherokee Nation. So Diani has been wonderful for me, and I've been mentored by many elders, but specifically her recent mentoring, actually, I won't say recent, I've been mentoring with her now for over 2 years. She's just an amazing being. She's connected to many universes, I'll just say that. Beautiful being. She was the one that helped me understand my gifts, or re-realize the gifts that I have. And her piece is that we need to help people because of the crisis right now, right? Of what's happening, the state of the world, the state of people's mental health. We need to get the work out more broadly, right? So I was only working with individuals. And with her help and her guidance, I now do this in groups. I now do this with organizations. I now do this with corporations. Because corporations are sick. They're sick. Our systems are sick. They're not serving people. And so this work is coming out more broadly. Diani also instills in me all the time life-enhancing and life-enforcing strategic plans. And so life-enforcing and life-enhancing strategic plans, you might be going right to business, right? Strategic plans, how can we be talking about this for an individual? But it's even more important for an individual to think about what's life-enhancing and what's life-enforcing for them. And so I now try to integrate that in every and all things that I do. Going back to my background. So my background's never been confirmed, although my grandmother, my father's mother, there's, a lot of chit chat, you could say, about our background being Native. I've always been connected to the land. Specifically, my father and I were very connected to land, very connected to nature. Although I don't claim, but I have innate awarenesses that a lot of the individuals that do mentor me can recognize. So that's how I'd like to, stay with that one. Diani's also, her book, I just want to mention that, her book, Voices of Our Ancestors, Cherokee Teachings from the Wisdom Fire, focuses on the circle of right relationship. So she'll always say to me, Tammy, today you look like a Plains Indian. Tammy, today you look Siberian, like a Siberian indigenous. It's because basically we all, everything. And a Native American elder, Raymond Kingfisher, always says to me, we are one. We are one. So I don't think it's necessarily how we label ourselves or anything. It's how we feel, how we're how we connect to our source, what drives us, spiritually. So one thing that I do want to mention about Diani's book is that she mentions that humans' intentions have gone astray and run wild with harmful inventions or technology. I'll just say that that's my word, which threatens the existence of life. And just as these arise from destructive thoughts of control and domination, our minds have the ability to give birth to creative means of reconciliation and transformation. She also states in her book that know that the very thing which disturbs your mind's peace offers opportunity to generate clear mind and transform patterns of disturbance for all. And I get chills. I get chills when I read that because her book is so beautiful. And I just picked out a couple little pieces that I thought were key, with the subject, the very important subject here that we're talking about and we're discussing. But yeah, it's been wonderful to have all of these individuals in my life supporting me, because for me, I'm embracing it because I'm embracing obviously the health of Mother Earth too, and the health of her is not good right now, and that it's because the health of the people aren't good, and we are really in the pandemic now, right? And have been, and that's this pandemic, or what we'd like to say pandemic, it's really a mental health pandemic right now. And if we don't fix ourselves or help ourselves, we're just going to continue down this destructive path of destroying Mother Earth, destroying ourselves, right?
I love that statement that you read, and I had this immediate reaction that, where was she when I was in the hospital, and wanted that kind of thinking and healing around me, or even right after. I have a high respect for Indigenous elders and Native American thought and tradition. If you could speak from whatever you've learned, in your mentoring and experience in either the Cherokee Nation or other Indigenous groups, you spoke that, your gifts are being evolved and developed. If a young person has special gifts that maybe would be somewhat out of the norm, and in certain cultures they might be shut down or even pathologized, how might one of your elders, or from what you've learned, how might that be seen from a young child's age when you see special gifts? Is it put into a mental health label, or is it seen? How is it seen?
It's not seen like that, because again, we don't just narrow it to one thing. It's about the holistic health of the individual. So I'll speak from my own experience of this happening. So Grandmother Three Crow calls it the star children. And I'll share my personal experience was that when I was always, like I mentioned, a kid that was very connected to nature. I was out in nature. I was by the riverbanks, the creek, the streams, picking things, making art out of it, a blade of grass, a plant, I had a relationship with those things. I remember that. I never shared that with anyone, not even my father, who was very connected to nature. You're considered like the outsider, right? And I remember it being very difficult for me to fit in as a young girl. I remember at one point, I think my mother gave a surprise birthday party to me, and this is when I was young. I think I was just maybe school age. And I opened up the door and I saw all those people's faces, and I was immediately blown back by all the energy that came out. And I shut the door and I ran out. Like, I was very uncomfortable. But But that was kind of like where I started to see, like, okay, I'm different. Something's going on here. I'm very affected by energies. And I remember one time telling my mom that I felt I was all alone in the world. I remember sitting on the couch with her. I feel so all alone. I'm the only one. And so in Grandmother Three Crows book, she talks about star children and the different things that star children will have, they will experience. And so now I can understand it going back, and because of the work, getting deeper into the work that I am, the spiritual work. So I can say I've been into this work since I've been 20, like really got into it deep when I was 20 and continued, obviously. But 5th grade, I'll never forget, it was going to a different school. Not that we moved, it was how the school system was set up. And I was separated from everyone I knew. Every child I knew in my elementary school was now not with me. I got somehow, whatever name, however they did it, right? I never felt so alone in my life, and so strange, right? Like so strange, like not having my connection. And I, talked to my mom. I was very sad. And what did they do? They sent me to a doctor and they put me on medication. So every day I went down to the nurse's office and I got my little medication, when instead of looking at what was going on with me as a young child, a 5th grader, in that I was feeling pulled away from my connections, my spiritual connections. Now you're in school, you're in big buildings. It was more serious in 5th grade, I'm pulled away from the people that I know. And that's really what's happening with the world today, is that it's our sickness, because we're pulled away from our cultures, our tradition, and our land. That's the sickness. And now maybe I'm trying to make it so that people are starting to see this integration, right, with all living beings, all living entities, to help all of us in this collective well-being, right, for collective well-being. Yeah.
So even you, 5th grader, you got invited into the mental health system with well-meaning, at that point, or attempting to be well-meaning, and you were basically given a mental health drug, a psychiatric drug, right, and given that label. If you were raised from whatever you can imagine, if you were raised in a protective Cherokee or an indigenous Native American group, how likely would that be, and how different would it be to see your gifts through a different lens?
I'll just say, not even just from a indigenous lens. Let's talk about really how do we get to the under the scope that we are, right? It's prescriptive, it's controlling, and Diani talks about that. That loss of the sense of freedom, that sense of exploring, that sense of harmony, however that's created for an individual, right? We get put in these systems, like a school system, right? We get, our bank systems, everything's so controlled and goes by such black and white, even the laws that were mentioned, and I can say that because I have a law degree, literally black and white. This is right or this is wrong. No, there's a lot of gray there. And that gray zone is where we need to figure out where our harmony is. So I'd like to see that not only from the indigenous tradition, because of course you don't go right to medicine. You don't go right, especially to white man medicine. You're going to the plants. You're looking at the whole being, that more holistic care of an individual. Those realms that I talked about earlier, right? Like all our realms, our physical, our mental, our emotional, our higher intellectual realm, our spiritual, our soul realm, right? So it's that's where I think the path of medicine has gotten off. And again, I can say that because I actually have a background in trauma and surgical critical care. And so it's like getting in, it's the ruts. What I say to people when they want to do the seeds work with me. The work helps you get out of the ruts, the dirt road, the ruts, where you're trying to get out of that rut, and it pulls you back into it. That's our systems. Things have to be coded in certain ways.